Okay, so hey guys, and I'm going to quickly be talking about a few HTML and CSS things that you can do to help improve your themes and to help start them off for people who are unsure of the program and language and how it works. So I have a REPL file, and I'm just going to quickly talk through a few things I've listed and how they work. So to start with, I thought I should take a quick look at the syntax of CSS, so how you would write CSS out. So if you go to the shell shockers CSS, you can take a look at that here, and yeah, it looks pretty simple. I'll quickly talk through it. So you start with listing what you want to edit. So for example, the p tag is listed as any part of text that you have. You can change it to body, you can change it to pretty much anything header 1, which is one of the types of headers that you have. Once you've done that, you have curly open brackets and all of your information's inside there. So for h1, you want everything inside the curly brackets to happen. And in there you can add things like color. For example, anything in h1, the color will be red, and any of the text will be aligned to the center. So it's pretty basic stuff like that. That's how you write CSS out, and you're going to need to know that for the rest of the tutorial and quick demo. So here's something that a lot of people don't cover, but it's called commenting. So if you want to basically leave yourself notes or reminders, you can use this syntax. So you put a / and then a star, and it basically blurs out everything afterwards. So none of that stuff will get included in your code. It's basically like a side note, and it changes color on most programs. It will change color, so for example green, and it's quite cool because it means you can start your own little notes, and you can explain things to people who are looking at your code. Now in the source code, if I bring this up, you have tons of stuff. So if I randomly select, for example, this, you have a header for here, you have divs, and you have classes, so you're listed by classes and listed by IDs. Now if you want to edit a specific div which has an ID, you use the div ID here. So for example, my ID might be stat item, so I'll copy that, and I'll do hashtag stat item. So for anything in stat item, I can set the background, for example, to yellow. And if it doesn't have an ID and it has something called a class, it's pretty similar, but you do the dot notation. So you put a dot before it. Ooh, there we go, like that, and you can set your background color to, for example, yellow, if that's what you need to do. Now the next thing I want to talk about is colors. So another really basic thing, but something you need to learn, and that there is 5 ways of writing colors. So you have your RGB, your hex code or hexadecimal, you have your HSL, you have your RGBA, and you have your HSLA. So RGB is your standard red, green, blue. You have RGB, open brackets, and your 3 quantities. The quantities go from 0 to 255, and that's how much of each color you have. When you combine that, it gives you one solid color. So for example, this color has 255, which is 100% of red, 99 out of 255 for green, 71 out of 255 for blue. Hex codes are basically the same thing, but a little bit different. So they're usually 6-digit characters, and they have 2 red values, 2 green values, and 2 blue values. In hexadecimal, you start with 00 and you end in FF. This is something you need to learn if you want to know more about. But every single value will have a 00 to FF value, and so it's like 0 to 9, A to F, and it increases as you go up with obviously color and the amount being used. HSL looks at hue, saturation, and lightness, so how bright it is, how light and dark it is, how much color it is, for example, things like that. RGBA is one of the most important ones, and I really recommend you know this one. This is the exact same as RGB, but at the end you have a 0 to 1 value, and that's the opacity, which is how much something shows, how much something's, for example, like blurred, so the background's sort of like visible. And your HSLA is the exact same thing as your HSL, but you also have the opacity feature at the end. Now, especially when making things like themes, here's something I wanted to talk about, and that was using images in CSS. So you have the same notation. This is for the background of a paragraph, and this is something you can do, which is use URL and then have a link in there. So for example, if I go to the sources file, and as I explained in my last tutorial, you can edit ammo and the skull icons and stuff in game. So they have this URL notation here, and you can edit that and put your own URL in here. So for example, if I was to put in, let's go, it's a random URL, but it's not an actual image, but for example, this is an image, so if I just search up a, I don't know, a picture of New York, I can get a random image. I can open that in a new tab. I will quickly just get the URL of the photo, which is here, and I can edit that to this, for example, and now I have a URL for the ammo, and that's changed. So the same thing works when you're doing stuff like background. So if I go back to the style.css file, sorry, just revert my changes here. Okay, back to style.css file, and you go up to the top where I talked about editing the colors. I think it is the, which one is it? Which overlay is it? That edits the, yes, this one. So I can change this to, for example, a URL. In the same notation, URL, you have your two open brackets, you put your URL inside it, and you just do a bit of notation with the semicolon. But as you can see, the image I had before, not the best of quality, but I do have that as my background now. So that's how URLs work. So there's that. And you have your background color, height. This is all just extra stuff that was included from where I took this, but this is one of the main things I think you need to learn. Really, really important, especially from when adding sort of background images and stuff. Sorry, that is really bugging me. Let's get a good quality image going. Okay, this is taking too long. Let's try. Oh, come on, just give me a normal image. Alright, let's take this for example. Cut that and replace it. Also, is something that I would like to quickly bring up at the end of URL. If there's anything after a question mark, that is usually talking about the sizing of it, which is quite important. Just something you should know. It doesn't actually mean anything, but I recommend removing it. And that's how I like doing stuff. I remove it at the end. So yeah, I have a background, which is quite nice. Might make this into a mountain camping theme. But till then, this is the last thing. So margins, maybe not the most important thing, but it's just something you should look at. And yeah, it's a quick few points I wanted to talk about. If you want to know more about CSS and CSS notation, you should probably go to W3 School, so I will link that in the description, but you can go straight to learning HTML and CSS. All of them have demonstrations on how to do things. When you're coding and stuff, it has JavaScript, Python. These are all a few things I recommend learning. But if you click, for example, Learn CSS, on the left hand side it gives you a list of absolutely everything CSS wise. So if I want to look at changing fonts, for example, I can click on fonts, and it will tell me what options are for generic fonts, and it will show me the code for it, and it will take me to a try it yourself page with an example of it, and with all these different fonts, which is quite cool. But you can learn that. You can learn HTML, JavaScript, anything you want to start learning. That's really useful. JavaScript is how the game is written in. HTML is how it looks. It's how it's arranged. So, for example, the HTML would be these boxes here and the image, but the CSS is the actual design style of it all. So that's that, and I think I left a few things in here. So if you're going to, this is a bit of basic HTML. Not much you need to know here, but I will leave this up here for a few seconds for people who want to read it. This is just how you do links, for example, in HTML. How you can, for example, involve scripts. I don't actually have one here, but if you want to, instead of creating a style.css file, you can use a style tag, which looks something like style, and the notation of in the notation of HTML you do two triangle open bracket style, and then to close it you do the same thing but with a /. So that's the notation, but you can add style tags, or you could include it in the header ones. So for example, all of my header ones I want to be the color of tomato. So if I actually bring this across and I run this, this is all my, I've used this as a header 1 tag. I've said for this header 1 tag, use color tomato. This is tomato. And I think in my other file I said something about aligning it centrally, so there's that. It's header 2. And the box is from over here, the background color and background image, and the link is this over here. So you use A tags for links, P for paragraphs, H1 to H5 is for headers, header 1 being the most important. You've got style tags, you've got your head, body, your HTML, and which is something that got asked quite a bit recently, but doc type HTML, I include this in a lot of my CSS files, and that's basically just declaring what the file type is. But yeah, that's that. So yeah, so that's the few things I wanted to talk about. This will help you out, I think, with your shell themes quite a bit, but I will post an updated shell themes video pretty soon, and I will include all of this in. I'll be doing step by step on creating one, actually creating my own one at the same time, so you guys can see my process in there. And yeah, hope this helps you out a little bit, and I'll catch you in the next video.